Hey everybody, it's Shirin from Moms Matter, and today I have Lisa Niver. We're going to talk about how she is an award-winning travel journalist. She's traveled to over 102 countries on 6 continents. We're going to talk about her amazing podcast that's also won awards and her new book, Bravish. Well, it's been out for a year now, but wow, Lisa, I'm so excited to have you in the studio.
I am so honored to be here with you. I mean, we've known each other through so many changes and so many daughters.
Oh my gosh, it's amazing. I first met you, Lisa, when you were teaching science at Bowerman. That feels like a whole lifetime ago. That was 15 years ago.
I know. I mean, when I saw your daughter speaking before Congress and all grown up, and I thought about when she was in my classroom with the little pipettes, and remember when we made the science fair ice cream experiment?
Yes. But you've always been full of knowledge and a thirst you're so curious. You've always been so curious. And in your classroom, you would talk about travel and how important travel is. And now that's your mantra. That's all you do. You travel and you share your experiences with the world. Tell us a little bit about your platforms and what you do and how people can find you, because I have moms asking me all the time, where should I travel to? I want my kids to learn, but I want it to be fun. And you have all the answers. Share with us, please.
Thank you. So I have a website that I started while I was working at Bowerman called We Said Go Travel. And now with the book, I have another website, which is my name, Lisa Niver. And then on social media, I actually post on 9 platforms. And all of those, yes, I make that face also. All of them are Lisa Niver, so at Lisa Niver. And I try to share what I find interesting in traveling, and I feel like it's educational but not boring and not talking down to people, just like when I was sharing in my classroom. One of the things I remember, I don't know if you remember this, for first grade we were studying architecture. Okay. So we were making houses out of gumdrops and toothpicks. And I was explaining to the kids that sometimes in America, mostly we have rectangle and square houses. But other places, I'd just been in Sri Lanka. So I said, you know, the stupas are round. And one of the kids raises her hand and says, what about Mongolia? And I was looking at her thinking, what about Mongolia? It's not in Sri Lanka, Mongolia. And she looks at me, she goes, remember, Miss Niver, the gears are also round, like the stupas. And I'm like, oh.
Wow.
I am such a good teacher, yes.
Wow.
I didn't make that connection, but you did, thank you. So I think kids and parents are so thirsty for that.
They are. So tell me something. When you've got like kids at different ages, right? You're in different places. Where is one go-to place that you would tell everyone they must travel to that'll be an easy but yet fun and like super educational place? If you were to say one place that everyone should go to, where would you say to go?
Oh, wow. One place that everyone should go to. Well, personally, I'm in love with Bonaire because I love scuba diving, and they've done such a good job of keeping the reefs healthy. But mostly what I tell people from my book, when I did my 50 challenges, is that it's really important to think about small steps. Small steps lead to big changes. And I would tell people, start in your own backyard. You and I are here in Los Angeles. We have world-class museums. People come from around the world to travel here on vacation, and a lot of people haven't been to all the museums here. So I would say, you know where you should start? Go to one museum every month. Museums have a free day. You could also, we have amazing theme parks. So one of the things about traveling, especially as a family, is making sure, does everyone feel heard in the planning? Right? Like, I want to go scuba diving, but maybe you have a kid that wants to go to the museum, or a kid that can't stand touching sand. So I think it's important to have a family meeting and think about, at the end of our trip, we'll all be happy if. Because it's a lot of money and a lot of, as you know, herding cats. Like, how am I going to get all these kids through security on the plane? Does everyone still have their water bottle?
It's a lot. It's a lot, but you have such a beautiful way of explaining it all and showing us, because you take video of everywhere you go.
Everywhere.
And so if people go to your, YouTube channel, they can see all these amazing places you visited and look at it with their families and say, hey, does this look fun to you? Or do you want to go here? But a lot of this that you were doing with your ex-husband. And when you parted ways was when you were inspired to write your book, Bravish. Can you tell us a little bit about the journey of how you came to write this book and how you had the courage to really step up as a woman and write this book?
Yes.
It takes a lot of courage.
Thank you. Well, I'd say I wrote this book kicking and screaming and crying on the floor. That when I originally started the 50 challenges was a response to, I had a problem growing up with my eyes. And so all my life I've had a lot of accidents, and everyone told me I'm clumsy. But in fact, I'm not clumsy. I didn't see right. So that was what started the 50 challenges, was taking that back. I was divorced. I know many men and women that get divorced feel embarrassed, feel like a failure. I had a lot of that, and I was trying to figure out how to get going again. I thought I would never travel again, and that was a big fear for me. And I started working through it, doing my challenges, and the first one was super tiny, and the next one was a little bit bigger. And over the year, before I turned 50, doing all these literally by the end crazy things, it really changed me. And then I had the idea to write about it, which I thought I was just going to write the 50 challenges. I was okay with that. But I met in New York with several agents, and everyone said, no, 50 things. If the book was every single woman needs to do these 50 things, that's a book. But my book was like, oh, things are wrong with my eyes, and I had this accident, and then I took this back. They said, you have to start with the divorce, and people have to care about you. So for a while, I said, no. I shelved the project. I was like, I do not want to talk about this. And then I felt really called to do it. It seemed important. And a lot of the times in the writing, I couldn't even explain why I was doing it. But I've learned, I kept quitting, but I heard that there's this thing called resting. And that when you have a challenge and you feel overwhelmed, you should rest. I didn't have that word yet because I'm always going. But I wish that I had, written down all the times that I said to someone I quit. Like, I have a friend who's a therapist, and I used to leave her these long voicemails. I hate this project. I'm never doing it. I'm quitting. She finally admitted to me after the book was published, because I never listened to one of them. I just deleted them. She said, it was important for you to say it, and you felt heard on my machine, but I didn't care.
It's so important to have friends that you can call and just let it all right.
But eventually, it became a book. I had a developmental editor, and then once COVID happened in March, was doing segments for KTLA about travel, and I had all these trips planned. And then in March, things obviously changed for the entire planet. It didn't happen to me, but I wasn't traveling. I was home, and that's when I wrote most of the book. So I wrote the book. I found an agent. We sold to Post Hill Press. It got distributed by Simon & Schuster. And like you said, it's out already more than a year.
It's amazing. And you've won an award.
I've actually won multiple awards in multiple categories. So I recently won an award in a women's category. I've won for inspiring nonfiction. In all honesty, if I wrote the book and it never got published, it would have been worth it, because it was so cathartic for me.
Right.
But then it came out and people like the book. And it's interesting. It's funny how people respond to you. Like, one of my friends called me and she's like, I'm reading your book and I can hear you talking. I know this is exactly what happened. And I was like, of course it's what happened. She goes, I know, but I can feel it. And then I recorded the audiobook. So people have been listening to me talk about it. And I love that it's called Brave-ish, because I think a lot of us don't feel that we can do things. We get in our heads, we overthink. And a few people said to me they didn't like the title because they're like, it's not a good title because you are brave. But the thing is, we all have ways that we are brave in our lives, and we all have things that we don't feel confident about. So I think it helps people to know, like, I was afraid.
I mean, you were afraid, but you overcame it, right? We all have fear. It's what we do with that fear that's important. And so you show through this book how you set your intentions and you went forward with it, right? But we do that. I feel like at midlife now, women, we have all these great ideas and all these challenges we set forth. But more than 50% of the time we give in and we're like, we're done. What is it that kept you going?
It's funny. People have asked me this before, and I think you're going to appreciate this since I actually taught your daughter science. There's this theory called big rocks, like move big rocks first thing. And so before I finish at the end of the day, I write out what I want to do the next day. And in the morning when I sit at my desk and I look at all the things and I'm like, oh, no one wants to do that, that's the one I do first. Because the only way to keep going, you got to accomplish stuff. Seth Godin, I love Seth Godin. And when I was first working on the website, which was in 2010, he had this whole thing about artistship. And the theory was, if you don't put your work out there, if no one sees it, you can't grow. And so I that's always been my thing. Like, you know, I think that my early writing on the website is kind of terrible, but if you don't write all those blog posts that no one reads in the beginning because you have no audience, I always tell people, just start. No one's watching anyway. Like, my early videos are so cringy. One of the kids, Hannah, in 5th grade, taught me iMovie at Browerman during recess. That's how I got started. I said to the kids, I have all this video footage. What should I do? And Hannah, who's actually the niece of someone I went to college with, she's like, I'll teach you. So I literally like an 8-minute lesson. God. And so my early videos, there were a lot of transition choices. So I used them all. I didn't want any of the transitions to feel left out. So my early videos, it's like opens up in a circle, closes in a circle, slides, mosaic.
But you did it and you published it, showing all the other women who want to do something that it's okay. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just get it out there.
It doesn't have to be perfect. You know, when I get in my head a lot, I think about David Dasa. I used to take Israeli folk dancing from David Dasa, who learned from his dad. And he used to say, practice makes better. Practice doesn't make perfect.
No.
And in dance, who cares? You're there dancing, you're having fun, you're this huge group, we're all together. It doesn't have to be perfect. But sometimes when you're looking at the blank page and you're like, so bad. And now I'm taking it at a different dance studio. I take it Soho Dance. And Raul says all the time, well, he says, do the thing. But he also has this thing for followers about wait for the information. Like, you don't know as a follower, you're going to go forward, you're going to go right, is it a spin? Right. Wait for the information. So sometimes when I'm freaking out about something, I'm like, maybe I just don't have all the information.
But you now, with all that you've learned through this process, are teaching yourself. You're teaching a course.
Yes. I'm actually following, and I'm a little fangirl for Seth Godin. So he teaches on Udemy, like Academy, but with a U.
Right.
So I have a travel writing 101 class. Because I miss teaching in the classroom. And my class, I tell people, it's like an appetizer. It's a little bit about writing, a little bit about video, a little bit about social media. You know, people have this idea what a travel journalist's life is like on the road. And that, I don't know what they think it is. I should do a behind the scenes but it's a lot of pieces. It was 30 years ago when people wrote for, Vogue magazine and made $5 a word. Very different than the scrappiness of now, where editors are looking at your social media. Everybody wants a video. So you really need some ability in all of these categories. If you're not on social media, I published 2 stories for Pasadena magazine over the summer. And I posted them everywhere. They put them in print, they put them online. They're on all my platforms. Editors want that, right? Sure. We all need help.
Yeah, we do. And so you're helping by teaching and offering this class, which is amazing. What is the greatest lesson you learned about yourself in the process of writing your book? Because I think it's such a big undertaking. I've been at it. I've been trying to write a book, and I keep starting and stopping and starting and stopping. What is the one thing you really learned through the whole process that's kind of changed you?
Wow, no one's ever asked me that. I love this question. I think the thing I learned is I am actually brave. I don't think I knew that. When I was living the 50 challenges, I definitely didn't see it. Other people saw it. But when I was writing the book, it was so interesting. Every single challenge I said no to. And as I'm writing it, I'm like, oh my God, this is so repetitive. Lisa loves to say no. I was like, oh, I'm never doing that. And there were people that would say to me, oh, isn't it the point of your project to try new things? Do not use my words against me. I was so angry. But eventually, towards the end, I wasn't quite as difficult and combative, like I'm never going to do it. And so one of my 50th thing was I actually, in Oceanside, I jumped out of an airplane.
Wow.
I went skydiving. And I was terrified, and there's a lot about it in the book. But the interesting thing to me was, I do teach now sometimes on set. So I was in Canada working on a production, and we were in Toronto, and I went to the CN Tower. And I went to the top, and I saw other people on the outside of the tower. And I was like, oh, can I do that? And they said, well, not today, but you can come back. So I was like, okay, I'm going to walk on the outside of the tower. And the day I went, it was actually raining, and I thought they'd cancel. They're like, oh no, we don't cancel unless there's lightning.
Ah.
And I was like, okay, well, if you think it's safe, I'll go. And other people in my group were really scared. And I was looking at them and I'm like, is this scary? And they said, have you ever done anything like this? I'm like, well, I jumped out of an airplane. And the guy's like, yeah, that's scarier. And I felt like I had graduated. I was like, oh, I can walk around the tower in the rain. And then I did one in New York called City Climb, and you were supposed to walk around the edge of the building. It's really high up. And I was like doing Saturday Night Fever around the corner of the building, and like, you're not afraid? And I was like, actually, is it scary?
Incredible.
But I mean, you're in a double harness. They're like, we can lift an elephant. I'm like, I definitely weigh less than an elephant. I was like, let me check. No, I'm less than an elephant. I'll be okay. So, but I did notice during the COVID and the writing the book and all the things, there are times when something comes up and I'm like, bravery is like a muscle. We like need a gym for bravery. And that's, for me, the 50 things was a very concerted effort. I actually did 80 things, and we picked the 50 that kind of made the most, bookishness. But you have to practice. And sometimes I tell people it helps use I'm a scuba diver, and so we never scuba dive without our buddy. And some people need a bravery buddy. Like, you might need me as a book buddy.
Yes.
I'm a very good book buddy.
Yes, to get the book done.
Well, because you need someone to say, hey, so remember you're going to finish that chapter this month?
Well, who was holding you accountable? You were holding yourself accountable.
I'm so good at being a teacher. I just write it down. I was like, my developmental editor, we had a call sometimes every week, sometimes every other week. And we would talk about, like, do you think you could do this? And I was like, oh, I really like to check things off. And so I worked it backwards, just like when I taught the kids science fair. First, we pick the topic. Then we get all the ingredients for the recipe. Then this. And so that's what I did with the book. I had the editor, I had the outline, I had the chapters. She's like, you don't have to write in order. I'm like, I do have to write in order. And I'm going to do this much. She's like, it's not like a magazine article. You can't just do 1,000 words a day. And I was like, pretty sure you can. So I had a goal. I'm going to do 1,000 words a day. And some days I wrote 500 words and cried on the floor. And some days I wrote 2,000 words. And some days it was terrible. But But
you got it done. And you did 80 challenges, wrote about 50. You've won a ton of awards because of it. Can you do me a favor, Lisa? Look in that camera. What is your advice to all those amazing women out there who have this brave idea that they want to get out there and something is holding them back?
So my very best suggestion, if you want to get started on a project, is start very small and start for free. Low stakes. Just like we said, if you want to start traveling, start in your own backyard. Go to the museum once a month. If you want to do a book project, start with an article. Take a friend to lunch and say, I really need your help. I'm going to write the title, and can you help me think about the steps? I do this all the time with some of my friends that I worked with decades ago on the cruise ship. We go out to lunch, we take paper with us, and we write things down. And then I literally schedule it on my calendar. So you have to find the smallest step that you can do and just make a commitment to do that one thing. And then once you do that one thing, you're like, oh, that wasn't that bad. Maybe I could do one more thing. Don't say you're going to build a whole house, by yourself if you never built a house before. Say like, oh, maybe I'm going to learn how to fold an envelope. Like, it has to be a small thing that you can accomplish and feel good about. Just like in dance class, they have practice makes better. You go to the lesson first. So maybe you want to take a class about writing a book, or maybe you want to read a book, or maybe you want to write one article, but you want to find a small step that you can accomplish and then be proud, tell people about your achievement, and then do the next thing.
I love that, Lisa. Take baby steps so that you're not, because I think sometimes our standards are just way up here for ourselves.
Way too high.
And then you just can't get there, so you just give up.
Yes.
But with what you're saying, if we have baby steps, we'll get there. We'll achieve our goals like you did. And congratulations. It's amazing what you're doing, Lisa. Just all the platforms, all the love, and you're just being so vulnerable, and you're putting yourself out there and inspiring so many other women to do the same, which I love. Where can people find you?
Okay, so on the internet, everybody that's on social media, I am Lisa Niver, my full name. And I have a website, Lisa Niver, and I have my travel site, which is We Said Go Travel. And YouTube's the only one that has both Lisa Niver and We Said Go Travel. But I'm over 2 million views, but I'm super close. It's almost 2.25 million.
Amazing, amazing, Lisa. I love it. Well, everyone who doesn't follow Lisa, follow her. Go to YouTube, subscribe to her channel. I promise you, as a mom, it'll help you plan your vacations. You'll get all this great inspo. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for all that you're doing.
Thank you.
We'll see you all next time right here on Moms Matter.